Terry Sweeney here, contributing editor to Dark Reading, and joining us now on the stage is Adam Strange, Principal Analyst, Data and Identity Security with Omdia Cybersecurity. Adam, thank you for joining us on the Dark Reading News Desk.
Hi, Terry. You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. You've been digging into the data security posture management market with your research. Of course, we're curious about the scope and scale of that research, but for viewers who may be new to this DSPM acronym, tell us a bit about the functions and basically the intent of a DSPM platform.
Sure. So I guess DSPM really surfaced as a concept at the RSA conference probably about 2-3 years ago. It was a kind of a different approach to the way that organizations should be looking at protecting data as a whole. Took a much more holistic view and was really a combination of a series of propositions, tool sets, services, capabilities that kind of start at one end in the sort of data discovery sense, so finding data, then moving through sort of classification. So once you've found the data, you then need to classify it according to its sensitivity, its risk to the business. Once that's then done, then it's an element of bringing in protection to data. So, you know, your sensitive data needs to be encrypted, maybe data masking, tokenization, etc., just to make sure that you can't have immediate visibility of that sensitive data as it travels from location to location. Then, of course, you've got to get access control. You've got to preserve the access to that particular data. So that's the data security piece. Then the posture management is really about kind of assessing your posture, making sure that what you've built stands the test of time so that it's relevant as much tomorrow as it is today. So very much more holistic, trying to sort of ascertain where the vulnerabilities are and maybe sort of do some patch management or remediation so that the vulnerabilities are exposed to the user before they're exposed to the bad actors.
My sense is that these functions were all largely siloed and or not automated. Is that accurate?
Yeah, certainly. It's not new. It's the concept is grouping it all together into a platform, I guess, which is the new bit. But obviously, as data security has increasingly emerged as a separate cybersecurity discipline in its own right, then it made sense to bring everything together to form a sort of as I say, a more holistic picture.
I want us to get to the findings, but I'm wondering if you can share just some specifics about your methodology, your sample size, and if maybe there was a thesis you were trying to prove or disprove.
Yeah, not so much a thesis. It's really a kind of capture of the market as a whole. So this is the report itself is what's known as an Omdia universe. So it's Omdia's blue ribbon report, competitive analysis report, and I went out to the DSPM vendors and asked them to contribute. Not all of them did. It's a voluntary thing. So I guess I captured about 11 of the key vendors, and the report assesses responses to a questionnaire and boils those down into a series of sort of top-level criteria. Overall to then pictorially represent where each vendor sort of sits within the marketplace. So I guess in broad terms, top right is good, bottom left is not quite so good.
Good enough. Well, I think we've built sufficient suspense now. Talk about some of the key findings that emerged from the research.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that it highlighted was that the vendors to score well have to have a capability across virtually all of the functional areas that I outlined earlier. It's no surprise that some of the sort of more established vendors do very well. There were 4 that we deemed leaders, about 5 in the sort of the category down challenges, and then there's a couple of sort of rather kind of newish entrants to the market that get that sort of prospect tag.
And who emerged at the top of the pile?
At the top of the pile, probably no surprise that of the four, three were the large established vendors. So IBM certainly were expected to be there. They have a very good pop position around the DSPM space. OpenText also do very well. They have a very extensive and broad range of capabilities. I guess a new player on the market is Thales. So, out of the French defense organization, but they have a very capable cybersecurity proposition. And then I guess one of the slight surprises was that one of the more kind of regarded as a DSPM pioneer, Big ID, also did very well. So they were the four leaders.
All right. What other surprises or salient points emerged from the research data?
I think one of the things that did emerge was that identity management, although sort of embraced in the broad brush definition of DSPM, probably was the one that was lacking across the board. But obviously, where it was included in a portfolio, then obviously that vendor did particularly well. There were a couple of slightly smaller organizations that did well. Sky High Security, very new into the DSPM market, but actually have done a lot seemingly to provide quite an expansive portfolio. They covered a lot of the technologies very well. So although they were functionally capable, they didn't quite get as far up the tree as perhaps their technology would have warranted, because they're just so new.
Sure.
So, they're definitely an organization to watch going forwards. And similarly, security with an I did very well. And again, a small organization, but very functionally capable.
Adam, close us out with some thoughts around things that you learned with regard to where DSPM fits in the sort of continued evolution of data security.
So it's interesting. Again, DSPM came to the fore 2 or 3 years ago, but it's already seeing a morphing into different areas. We saw a lot of the pioneers being bought by some of the larger providers, which I guess underlines the opportunity that they saw DSPM representing, sort of augment their existing data security portfolios. So there's this sort of notion of endorsement maybe in terms of the space, because the big providers have moved in, made their acquisitions, added DSPM to their capabilities. So that's, I guess, one aspect of it. In terms of the way forward, DSPM is now morphing into a kind of a wider platform perspective. So it's a platform in itself, but there's elements that are still missing. So technologies that could easily be added in to augment it even further.
Okay.
Technologies like DLP, perhaps sort of data detection and response, data erasure rather than data deletion. So there's a lot of things that could still be sort of brought in there, backup and restore as well. So bringing a kind of a reactive element to the proactive piece that DSP sponsors, but yeah, bringing it into wider platforms is a key kind of development over the past few months.
Good stuff. Real briefly, tell us your thoughts around the possibility that DSPM could be subsumed into one of the other many platforms that are managing security these days.
I think it's not so much a case of that at the minute, but it could well be that it gets consumed into sort of an even wider sort of platform. But at the moment, it's a sort of a stepping stone approach, and we've gone from seeing DSPM emerge as an entity in its own right, and a platform in its own right, and it's now moving into that sort of data security, wider data security platform point of view. So I guess we'll see it emerge into something even wider going forwards. But for the moment, it's that sort of next step is the one that we're seeing evolving and defining itself for the moment at least.
Adam, thanks for the deep dive on DSPM. Really appreciate the dive into the research data as well.
No worries. You're very welcome, Terry.
We've been talking with Adam Strange of Omdia Cybersecurity. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us for this segment. We'll see you next time.